Hello and welcome to this press conference of the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. This is the first of a series of media engagements that will happen continuously, as the Minister just indicated. I'm Derwin Wills. I will be the moderator for today's press conference, and I'm joined by the Honorable Dr. Vindhya Prasad, the Minister for Human Services and Social Security, and a number of other officers who were within the ministry and also in the Childcare and Protection Agency. We have Ms. Levine Gavaya, the Director of Childcare and Protection Agency, Mrs. Sherry Ann Francois, the Assistant Director Acting of the Child Care Protection Agency with responsibility for operations, Ms. Melissa Jupiter, who's the attorney at the ministry that also works along with the Child Care Protection Agency and is stationed there, and Ms. Samantha Craig, the Assistant Chief Probation Officer Acting and former head of the Family Enhancement Services Unit. As I said before, this is the first of a series of engagements of that nature. And of course, the media will have a chance to ask questions of the minister and the team. But first, we will start off with remarks from the Honorable Minister. Minister?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to join you here with my team, who you've already introduced. And the intention of this series is to engage the media, but also to provide information to the public on what are the functions, mandate of the Child Care and Protection Agency, the work, programs, and initiatives of the Child Care and Protection Agencies, and the current activities as the year unfolds. The Child Care and Protection Agency falls under the umbrella of the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security and has oversight and responsibility for children across the length and breadth of Guyana. The work of the Child Care and Protection Agency is governed by the 2009 Act that speaks to the protection of children. And along the way, you will be able to see that over time, the Child Care and Protection Agency services would have expanded. And in the last 4 years, there was an overarching theme that we adopted through the Child Care and Protection Agency called Every Child Safe, speaking to the placement of children in terms of their safety, security, and also speaking to our role in ensuring this happens. To have that happen the way we want it to happen requires education, requires information, and requires capacity building within the Child Care and Protection Agency, and also requires us to interface with stakeholders, parents, and caregivers of children. Over time, we would have delivered a number of programs, and a few of those programs involve our parenting program. This was a new initiative that was developed. A trainer of trainers manual was developed, a workbook for parents, and this program is in the early stages where we work with parents on parenting techniques and skills when it comes to raising children and dealing with the various dimensions of child care. In addition to that, it was recognized that we needed to engage our members of public, especially women, through the Child Care and Protection Agency in collaboration with the Guyana Women's Leadership Institute on Care of Children. And so the Early Childhood Development Program emerged out of this. Today we have an early childhood development policy, which we would have worked on with UNICEF, which would be launched very soon. And this focuses on children between the ages of 0 to 3 years, 9 months. With all of that happening, we developed a curriculum also where persons are trained to be in the arena of childcare. And so we've trained a number of persons across the country through the WIN program in every region actually. And we have now been honing in on early childhood development where persons are now going to move into special needs education training. And with all of that, we are looking at how we can develop home-based care, alternative care, and engage people in communities to start their own ventures in this. To this end, the government of Guyana expended in its budget sums of money to construct two day night care early childhood facilities, which will be opened this year. These will work as the model centers and also have the functional capacity of providing day, night care, and early childhood development services. It's a brand new model. In fact, it's the only model of its kind in the region. And with the piloting of this, we will engage women so that they can start their own versions in their community with the idea that parents who are working will have somewhere to leave their children that is safe, safe and also leave their children with persons who are so trained. As such, the Child Care and Protection Agency has been engaged in a series of training programs with existent care centers across the country, and they're working with women to take those centers and new centers to become centers of excellence. So this is solid work that's happening in the arena of early childhood development. In addition to all of that, this year we're working on developing a rapid response team. We do have reports of cases of abuse, and as you know, abuse is not only limited to sexual abuse, there are various aspects of abuse, and that includes neglect, physical, emotional, a number of those. Right at the top of that, neglect is right there. That's the topmost form of abuse that exists in our country. So in dealing with our rapid response team, this was realized when we started 2 years ago the Street Light program, removing children from the streets. This program is an ongoing program, and we've continually removed children from the streets, and not only removed them, but worked with their family. Worked with their family on things like employment, if their family members require that, counseling, and also working with the children not to have recurrence. But it was felt that we need to move beyond the hours of work at the Child Care and Protection Agency. So we are looking at a rapid response team that goes into the evening hours to respond to the number of cases, reports. And this is an important thing. It's a shift from what we have known Child Care and Protection to be, but it also speaks to an issue which I am very frank in saying, that we need more child care and protection officers in the country. Currently, we have officers in all of the regions. We have a total of 48 officers in our regions across the country. And when there are cases that are peculiar to sexual abuse, we have the child advocacy centers. This is in partnership with ChildLink and Blossom Inc., and they have been heavily subsidized by government. In fact, Blossom Inc. this year would have received over $10 million in addition to the last allocation in budget. So which means that government has given a combined subvention over more than $130 million to both agencies to be the administrators of the child advocacy centers. And we now have these centers in all of the regions. This is where the forensic interviews take place. You will hear more of that as we speak of the protocols governing how we respond and how we deal to cases of child abuse. And one of the major things we are working on this year in the IDB project that is ongoing is setting up our own forensic interview unit, a state-owned forensic interview unit. We've sent a few officers to have preliminary training in India. We are working to equip the Region 3 Hope and Justice Center with the equipment that is required to conduct the forensic interviews, which is a modern interview unit that we are trying to develop, and we will continue to train officers because at present we do not have that capability within the state. So we are continuing with our collaboration with the two entities. We've also looked at the Child Advocacy Center's protocols, and this has been reviewed, and based on the review, you would recognize that we would have had our own internal discussions and review on where the gaps exist and how we need to address cases going forward. So I don't want to say everything because I do have persons who are here who can share also directly, but I want to say that there has been a lot of work. We are challenged by the lack of human resources. We would love to have more child care and protection officers on board. And because we do have some limitation in the hinterland region, there's a new program that is going to come on stream, which is a paraprofessional program in conjunction with the University of Guyana. I have been in discussion with the head of the social work department, Ms. Debbie Hopkinson, and also UNFPA, and we are looking at how we can have members of the hinterland communities, our Amerindian indigenous populations, while they work with us, they are a part of this paraprofessional training program to equip them with the essentials of social work, with the understanding that they will move on to degrees and subspecialties in social work. I've also very early coming in as a minister spoken with the Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Paloma Mohammed, And I've said that we do need to have subspecialties in social work to cater for things like child related issues. So a lot of discussions, a lot of work, a lot of things happening, and things in their infancy and embryonic stages, all towards gearing the Child Care and Protection Agency to continue to fulfill its mandate, albeit with the limitations that we have. And so, in addition to the Child Care and Protection Agency, I will say finally in the introductory remarks, we have the Family Enhancement Services Unit. This unit falls under the Program 2 of our ministry, and it's a unit, as it says, that speaks to family stability, healthy relationships in family, and heavily focuses on juveniles at risk, prevention of risky behavior, and intervention in early stages of risky behavior. It is based at the Palms compound, and they've been working even beyond Region 4, even though they're based there, to work once cases are identified in the early stages or even in a little bit of accelerated stages. It might be behavioral issues, it might be conflict, early conflict with the law, not gone to the stage of the court and things like that. They work not only with the child or the juvenile, they work with the entire family. And so we've had a number of successful cases, and as of recent as last year, we were in works with USAID, and we would have had all of the persons there trained. Miss Craig is here, and she would be able to tell you, she was actually Social Worker of the Year. She would be able to tell you some of the work that they would have done on a very special program called Wiry, Youth at Risk. And so I want to sum up in a nutshell what we're doing here and to say that if all goes well on the legislative agenda Monday, we will be taking another new piece of legislation on the floor, and that is the protection of children, international measures in line with the Hague Convention. As you know, we have already taken the Hague Convention legislation to do with intercountry adoption. We have resumed adoption, intercountry adoption, or some people say international adoption, intercountry adoption, that has been resumed, and we now have a central authority that governs that process in Guyana.
Thank you very much, Minister. Would there be any other remarks from any other officers before we move into the questions?
The Minister was very comprehensive in her
Thank you very
remarks.
much. To my colleagues in the media, of course, the general protocol is that you would identify the agency that you're from as well as your name. We could allow the first round of questions being 2 questions per person, and then we would continue to move around the room. So, do we have any questions as we start off? I see Talisha's hand first.
Talisha Narayan from the newsroom. I was just wondering what the ministry is doing specifically to target this issue of. I was just wondering what the ministry is doing specifically to target the issue of the shortage of officers, childcare officers, and how confident you are that this issue will be resolved. And the second question would be on the interview, the forensic interview unit. When are you guys hoping to roll that out?
Talisha, do I answer?
Go ahead, ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
please.
thank you. So in the first case, we are continually advertising for officers, social workers, and this has been a constant discussion with the University of Ghana because that's the institution that would normally have the training done for social workers. We have pretty much once persons apply, we definitely employ them. It is a process, and it's something that I hope that more persons out there will recognize the need to be in an arena of social work that focuses on children. We can only encourage. We are supposed to be participating in the University of Ghana job fair very soon. Again, like we do at other job fairs, it's an encouragement to get people to come on board with the Child Care and Protection Agency. And the program that I mentioned, Talisha, with the paraprofessionals, this is a launch pad towards that, because while it will be looking at social work in general, it is hoped that once we engage more persons in the ambit of social work, they will like it, they will gravitate to it, and from that we will be able to get more child care and protection officers, because that is the intent, especially in the hinterland where we do have a very difficult time getting persons in child care. With regard to the forensic interview unit, We have developed a protocol, an internal protocol. There's an existing protocol that exists with the Child Advocacy Center. So even though government is working on a state-owned forensic interview, that does not detract from what is already happening with our partnership. But once the IDB project kicks in this year, we will make all movement towards getting that up and running as soon as possible, within this year or perhaps very early next year, but I'm hopeful for this year.
Do you have a follow-up question on that? I think I could throw that in now. Thank you so much. I saw your hand.
Good morning, Crystal Young with Kaiser News. There were previous incidents of violent behaviors portrayed by persons presumed to be of unsound mind, which led to serious injuries and even death. What specific policies does your government have in place to respond to these matters, and are there any new proposals in the pipeline to get such persons off the streets to get professional help? Secondly, does the ministry play a role in ensuring that law enforcement officers and emergency responders are properly trained to handle situations involving individuals with mental health crises to reduce the risk of violence? If so, can you kindly elaborate on those? Thank you.
We have been mandated as the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security to work on ensuring that persons who are on the streets, who are homeless, who are indigent, have our attention, and we do so through the night shelter. We actually have a response team that goes out once or twice a week to ensure that persons are picked up off the streets. This involves a collaboration among the Guyana Police Force, the Mental Health Unit, and the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. It's a continuous process, but the law that governs this process is a very archaic one, and that one is one that has several gaps, if I put it that way. We would have had some discussions on this. And what we do at present is we take persons off the street. They're placed at the night shelter. If they have mental health challenges, they're worked on through the mental health unit, and that falls under the Ministry of Health. Sometimes we go beyond that to the actual Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation if there is more that is required. But we have a very effective partnership. And what I want to make very clear, the night shelter, while this falls under the Ministry of Human Services, it's not a prison. We cannot force people to stay. We give them all the care, the accommodation, the food. And sometimes people stay and they've stayed there for a long time. And sometimes people leave and come back. So we have that fluid situation that exists. And in terms of what is to be done, mental health has been a priority on the agenda of the government. You've heard Minister Anthony speak extensively on this. They have a number of programs. They are doing their own capacity building. Internally, as the Ministry of Health, there would have been some collaboration with agencies like ours. And with regard to the law enforcement agencies, I can say for the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, we do training, not specifically in mental health, because that falls directly under the Ministry of Health, but I have no doubt that the Ministry of Health will and has engaged with all of these agencies to tackle mental health, as it's a very serious ill. But in our own way, once we are apprised of a situation, we have a good referral pathway to the mental health unit. It's quite a responsive unit, and they've worked with us on many things, not only to do with the homeless and indigent, but also cases of trafficking in persons, cases of gender-based violence where we require that service.
Crystal, do you have a follow-up question?
No.
All right, we'll come over to this side of the room. Questions from this side?
Good day. Committee Slow, Stavros News. Good afternoon, Minister. All right, so my probably about 5 questions. Well, my first question is, yeah, I know. All right, my first question though, Minister, in the case of the 13-year-old Millie Miguel, Starbrook News understands that her sexual abuse case was sent to the Family Enhancement Unit instead of CAC. Is that the normal procedure? And if so, how many sexual abuse cases have been sent to the unit for 2025 thus far?
So in that particular case, there's an active investigation, and as such, I cannot divulge details of the case. We also bound by law to keep certain details confidential, I will say this: the Child Care and Protection Agency on any case can refer internally or externally based on the nature of the case. And so, yes, she was also referred to the Family Enhancement Services Unit. We did not bypass anything within the Child Care and Protection Agency. So I would like to ask Ms. Gavaya to respond as best as she can, also noting that this is an actively investigating case at the moment, meaning by the Ghana Police Force, a case that is being actively investigated.
Ms.
I
Gavaya?
would like to endorse what Honorable Minister would have said. Because we're legally bound by law not to share information as it relates to any particular case, I will not respond directly, but what I can say is that intervention was done at the agency level in the best interest of the child. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so my other question, in the case of the 15-year-old girl from Caneville that was hit down by the truck, Destiny Solomon. All right, so Solomon was crushed by a truck in November 6 on 2024 and left bedridden. Her family says they have gotten no help from the authorities. Can you say what help your ministry has provided or anything at all?
We have no report of that case. It has never been reported. Was it reported? We would have taken internal steps at the ministry to provide assistance.
But I want to say, when cases like that happen, the ministry can assist and would usually assist, and maybe the department is not here. But in cases like that, we would try to assist through the public assistance program, whether if it's in a case of permanent disability or assistance that is temporary, that could be done by an application, and I will ensure that if it is not done, it is done. If it is already done, I will be able to share that information. But one of the things we try to do through the Child Care and Protection Agency is to ensure that we reach out to members of the family, because sometimes they deal with a lot of emotions after such a tragic thing. It's a horrible thing to have anything go wrong with a child. And so those are things we try to do with family members.
Thank you.
To any of your last two questions? Okay, good. Any other persons along on this side? Members of the media? All right, we can start over generally.
Does the government plan to introduce or strengthen laws around domestic violence to ensure stricter penalties for perpetrators? And secondly, what were the total number of child abuse cases? This includes like sexual and other cases reported for 2024.
Nature News again.
Yes. Thank you for your question. The government has taken action. In fact, the Family Violence Act of 2024 was passed on the floor, and the Family Violence Act speaks to a number of areas that we consider to be gap areas in the previous act, which was called the Domestic Violence Act of 1996, and that has been repealed and replaced with the Family Violence Act. So this new piece of legislation has a broader coverage, whereas with the Domestic Violence Act, measures were taken when violence existed between two persons. Now the Family Violence Act provides for measures to be instituted against a number of persons who can be considered family members, whether it's siblings, partner violence, you want to speak about mother, child, those kinds of things, it falls under that. Now, this piece of legislation also has a criminal and a civil component, and I say this because measures that deal with criminal matters, this is considered now a criminal matter. So that is a really big jump as a country. This piece of legislation is a groundbreaking legislation in the Caribbean, in the region, because of this blend of civil and criminal measures. So there are very much more measures and also harsher measures that exist in the Family Violence Act. It speaks to the powers of the police officers. They have a time frame within which they have to provide a report and charge, so the police would be held accountable. It also provides for powers to the police where they can now enter a home without a warrant once there is reasonable suspicion, reasonable evidence that there is violence happening in the home. Then there is also the issue of ensuring that perpetrators and people complicit in perpetrating violence, they're all held accountable under this law. We speak of the civil measures, restitution, where if there's damage while the act of violence is being carried out, that is something that is happening within the law where measures are taken to pay compensation to the person. You also look at the whole issue of a person who lives in a home and is experiencing violence. The court can now order that the survivor remains in the home and the perpetrator leaves. It also looks at the protection or restraining order, as we call it. So it's quite a comprehensive law that has a slew of measures. And one of the big things that we are doing this year is because maybe people are not familiar with this new law. Currently, and you will see it throughout the year, our unit, the Sexual Offences Domestic Violence Unit, the Childcare and Protection Agency, the Family Enhancement Services Unit, and all of these units will be going police station by police station to train every single person. Yes, that far we are going. To train every single person in the police station, not only on the Family Violence Act, but on the Protection of Children Act, the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act, which we passed in 2023, because we're taking this seriously. In 2023 into early 2024, we completed training of 50% of the Guyana police force. And this was with regard to responding to cases of gender-based violence. So we're now actively working with the Guyana Police Force to have that training implemented in their curriculum when you deal with the police academy. We are also looking at continual training for the Guyana Police Force, and we are working on instituting a feedback form for members of the public. You will see a QR code very soon across the country. When this QR code is scanned, there will be a form that comes up. That form now will allow you on an engagement with a police officer to list your interaction, whether there were challenges, complaints, or positives coming out of it. This is a very, I think, big step in holding people accountable, and that comes in the background of a lot of work that would have been done under the Spotlight Initiative. As you know, Guyana signed on to the Spotlight Initiative in 2020, October 2020. And I remember that because I signed it. And I signed it 8 months after every country would have already signed. We were waiting on the elections craziness to be over. We had that long period of wait, and so just shortly after coming in office, we signed on to Spotlight. Guyana leapt ahead of every country in the region because of the measures they put in. Things like the 914 24-hour hotline would have been established. The iMatter app, which is now going to be released with a WhatsApp chat feature, providing resources and engagement. We have the Survivors Advocate program. This is a program where persons who complain of gender-based violence through any of the entry points will be linked with a survivor advocate that will take them through the whole slew of procedures from the point of reporting to the legal proceedings. And we say this is important because it's not just saying these things will happen. What else did we put in? We put in the safe voucher, the survival kit, the legal pro bono initiative, which provides victims or survivors, I like to use the word survivors, of gender-based violence with free legal recourse for 500 cases per year. And this is a MOU that we signed with the Guyana Bar Association to provide legal expertise to cases of gender-based violence, domestic violence, family violence. And so this is an ongoing process. We've also, in the last year, opened 2 Hope and Justice centers, one in Lusignan and one in Virgin. The Lusignan Center is up and running. The Virgin Center is getting there. And so these allow people who have any cases relating to gender-based violence and even child protection matters to go under one umbrella, one roof, and access anything from reporting the case to a police officer, a medical examination, legal recourse, counseling, and survivors advocate. And it is in one of these that we are going to place the forensic interview unit. So we didn't stop there. It's also important to have the collaboration between the ministry and stakeholders. So we developed a referral pathway, which is something that is going to be placed in every region, in the sense that while every region is already aware of it, hospitals, police stations, all the different entry points and the points that will have to respond to any kind of violence. We're also embarking on a training program around the country. The first place that this was done was in Region 6, along with the foundation training, where we worked with 13 to 25-year-old persons so that they were apprised of all the services we offer to tackle gender-based violence and all the signs they should look for and how they should respond. So while all of that is happening, we make sure that the stakeholders are aware of the services, aware of their roles and responsibilities. And like we are doing in terms of the referral pathway, we had training done with, in one case, Dr. Marissa C. Prasad on the rape kit. How should it be used? And we are doing that kind of thing with childcare and protection this year, where we will have all the officers in the ministry, all the stakeholders, and so all the elements that are necessary for us to respond effectively, continual training, education, and ensuring there's robust monitoring of the systems. You will agree with me, nowhere in the world there is perfection, but we continue to work with what we have to the best of our ability to make sure we have a network that can respond. But there are many, many things that sometimes can impede the way we work, and I'm sure you will ask questions around that and we can respond. But I'd like to hand over to Ms. Gavaya to address your second question where you asked on the cases. So I hand over to her.
For 2024, we would have addressed 4,038 cases of child abuse. And for 2025, we have 275 that we would have addressed so far.
Reports.
Reported cases of child abuse.
Is that it for you? Any follow-ups? Any other questions from the floor?
Yes.
Kamisi?
Yes. 1 second. To the minister again. As it relates to the case where the Janelle David, a 16-year-old, that was brutally beaten, fatally beaten last month, was the ministry aware of any reports regarding this? And was the ministry in contact with the child or family at any time?
Director and Assistant Director to
Mrs.
respond.
Francois?
I'm so sorry. No, I don't believe the Child Protection Agency is aware of the case. Of course, should it have come to the attention of the agency, we would have responded.
Meaning prior to.
Yes.
All right, so my follow-up question.
Go ahead.
My follow-up question, but now that the ministry is aware, is there any investigation ongoing, or do you plan to do anything about this as it relates to the case directly, given that the perpetrator is still on the run, also with any other cases that may be within the community?
Every effort is going to be made to make contact with the family and engage the relevant authorities to ensure that the child receives justice.
One of the things I want to say is investigation of cases like this would fall within the remit of the Guyana Police Force. And we have always urged in cases like these that there is justice, because when it comes to investigation, that falls as their mandate. We can work on the social side of things and we can work on other aspects, but in terms of law enforcement, it falls there.
All right, but...
Sorry. Could we ask if anyone else has a question before we continue? Kamisi?
All right, thank you. All right, as it relates to the child protection officers, you did mention that you plan to put them more, but can you say how many there currently are working around the country?
48 child care protection officers.
48.
And you will agree with me, when you heard the number of cases, the ratio of cases to a child protection officer is roughly about 90 to 100 per child care and protection officer. You will also realize the limitations of that we have been working on. We have increased because in 2019, according to a report by Director then Ms. Ann Green, they had 40. So it's a slow process, but I hope this program and persons listening who are interested in social work, specifically child care and protection, I hope they will respond, because we do need more people on board.
Thank you, Minister. And as it relates to the Cane Grove young lady, this is actually not a question, but if you would like to make contact with the family, I have a direct number.
Appreciate it. Thank you. But if I can say something, Dermot, many times we see things posted on social media, posted in the news. I would very much appreciate when those cases arise. Please contact us at the Child Care and Protection Agency because sometimes valuable time is lost with us trying to make contact to find children. Sometimes people post things up there, and unless someone sees it, something cannot happen. So this is a direct appeal to not only the media but to anyone. If there are cases of child abuse and they require the Child Care and Protection Agency, let us know directly because the law also provides for us to protect children whenever there are these cases. So things like posting children's imagery on social media, it's a big no-no. We have to protect children. And when you start labeling something as sexual abuse or anything else, it puts that child into more trauma because what you're doing is putting that child under the microscope. So it causes psychological harm and damage that when the child gets into counseling, we have to deal with. So whenever there is a case, I want to say, let us know. If we don't know, your help, anybody will be more than welcome. But I think the media, we have also had training sessions in the last 4 years, and one of those we partner with the UK High Commission on it for the media, specifically to look at how reports are done in the media. I know many things are beyond the media and they come on social media by persons who would like to bring attention to a case. I understand the intention might be one to help and to support, but it is how it is framed. Sometimes it causes more harm to the child, and the intention of the agency and the ministry and everyone is to protect the child. And that is what should be foremost in our minds. Protect the child at the end of the day, because however a case goes, once that child's identity is known and the details of that case comes out, remember that child goes to school, that child lives in a community, that child has to deal with it in addition to the angst that the child is already feeling from whatever is going on. So I really want to say that a simple phone call is a 914 phone call, and no one has to give their identification. You don't have to say who you are. Just get us where it is, who it is, and how we can get to that person. And the idea of the rapid response team is to really help that, because we have really been struggling to respond as fast as we want, given the numbers and given. So this is a brand new initiative, and it is something I would like to see grow. We're going to start it centrally in Region 4 and go out as far as we can. But, cases don't only happen in Region 4. Cases happen all over the country, and we have to respond to these. And one of the things you should know is that in addition to the Hope and Justice Center in Regions 3 and 4, there is a social services hub that will be populated with officers, including child care and protection officer. And so Region 1 will have a complement of officers in that hub. We call it a mobile unit. When we talked about it, when it was developed on the spotlight, we all thought it meant moving all the way around with a big truck or something. It's not like that. But once the unit is there, those officers will go out into the communities, and it's not only response, but it's education and information. And I want to also say, people may not know, maybe because we have not been as effective as we can in terms of getting all the work we do out there. But every week and all the time, education happens across the regions. Child Care Protection Agency goes out, does training, engages with communities. I go out myself on outreaches, and every outreach I go on always has a child care officer, not only to give education information, but to respond. So if there's a case in the community, whether it's the hinterland or the coastland, we deal with that on the spot. If you will permit me, I'd like to ask our attorney if she would like to share anything on the act, because I know she's been dealing with a lot of cases since she's come on board. I'll open the floor for her.
Okay, yes, thank you, Honorable Minister. I would just like to say a few things, especially about reporting cases. So under the Protection of Children Act, specifically Section 7, there is a duty on every member of society to report any cases of abuse or neglect. And this duty is very strict. It means if you have any information as it relates to any child being abused or neglected or even abandoned, you have a duty to report it to the police and or the Child Care and Protection Agency. And even if you report it to the police, they also have a duty to report it to the Child Care and Protection Agency. It is only when the agency receives these reports can we act. If we do not know of these cases, because remember, we're not in every home, we're not in every community at all times, but neighbors, they see what is happening. So if these neighbors or these members of society don't report it to the agency, we're not able to go into that community, reach that child, and provide the services that that child will need. We are not able to protect that child if we do not know. So I'm urging all members of society and the media, you have a duty when you know of these cases, report it to the agency. As Minister would have said, there's a 914 hotline, there's a Child Care and Protection Agency hotline, and there is even the offices you can go in and speak with the intake officers, and they will take that information down. And once we have that report, from there the agency can fulfill its mandate and its duty and investigate and thereafter provide the services that that child will need. I believe one more thing. One more thing,
Please.
sorry. I must say, under the act as well, persons who would place children in the situation of needing protection, place them at risk in those difficult circumstances, they can be charged. And I must stress on that because we've had a lot of cases where parents and other relatives would have abused or neglected their children, and then the agency now has to step in and try to repair the damage that would have been done to this child. Persons who create such a situation can be charged under the Protection of Children Act, and it is very strict, and it is something we plan to continue doing so that it will be a deterrent to those other persons who plan to abuse or neglect their children. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Lupita. I'm actually very happy that the 2 points were raised regarding the role and responsibility of stakeholders as well as the media. That was actually how I was going to close off this particular engagement. The Minister, if you would like to also say why these engagements are necessary in terms of connecting the media with the work that the ministry is doing, that could be our closing remark.
I think that the media has the power of the pen, the power of the key now, because now you can type, and the power of the mic. And I believe that that could be used very responsibly and very wisely to get the kind of information that we want to have across the country happen through a kind of partnership that we can establish. So it is important not only to report on cases and sometimes to sensationalize those, but it is equally important to have the media get the information that is so vital to children and to anyone who requires it so that they can access our services. It is important that the media also is equipped with the kind of information so in the media's reporting they understand the processes and the procedures that govern child care and protection. What is permitted, what is not, why things are done versus why things are not done in a particular way. So it will also guide your own reporting. And importantly, it is excellent if the media at all times, through these engagements and also through other engagements with us, when we share information on our own media, you share it outwards because you have so many different ways of getting it out there in your creative ways too. It could be not necessarily always a negative thing. It could be sometimes a very positive thing coming out there. Because at the end of the day, behind all the issues that affect children, there are officers who are working there, there are officers who are giving of their utmost. Not everyone is perfect. Not everyone will do things necessarily the way they ought to be doing it. So sometimes you should recognize when somebody has really surmounted something that would have happened with the efforts of the officers within the Child Care and Protection Agency. And Child Care and Protection Agency is not only about what we have only discussed today, but it has so many other facets to it. We have an adoption program, we have a foster care program, we have so many other departments that fall under the ambit of child care and protection. And we want you to be on this journey with us so people at all times understand and can work with us. We have something called the Community Advocate Network that is done under the Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Sexual Offenses, Domestic Violence Unit of the Ministry. This allows anyone out there who would like to work with us at the ministry to be trained by us in everything I've said and much more than I have said, so that on the ground, in the communities, they have information. They also provide support to people who are experiencing violence, whether child or adult, and they can also help with reporting to the agencies under the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Because look, I would never sit here and say that the Child Care and Protection Agency or the Ministry of Human Services can do it all. We can't. We need everyone on board to do this, and people have to understand this. I want to reiterate a point that Ms. Jupiter made. We are not in every home. We cannot know everything that is happening. But an early report, don't wait until it gets out of control. An early report can help someone. And in making that early report, we are going to commit to consistently keep reviewing our own systems, our own processes and protocol until we get it to where needs to be, because nothing is something that if it was here 40 years ago, it should be here the same way, responding in the same way to things, because things evolve. And so we need to understand that. We have social media that brings with it its own level of issues and crises. And so everyone has to be geared in whatever way they find themselves in the agency to respond to those things. And while you said I may close, I'll just say one line after, but I want to ask Ms. Craig to speak a little bit on the work that they've been doing through the FES agency with the Wiry program in particular.
Okay, so thank you, Minister. And again, just to go back on some of the things that Minister said as it relates to the Family Enhancement Services section, which primarily deals with at-risk youths. Now, when we talk about at risk, we're talking about those young people who are in either in delinquency, they're having issues with weak parental supervision, they have crisis in their lives and all of that, things that will make them delinquent, and we will call, all these risk factors. So once we have identified those risks, at the section, what we do is an interview with that youth with the consent of the parent. With that consent, it gives us the opportunity for us to work with the family, not alone, not the youth alone, because traditionally we know that the therapeutic intervention is usually with the child, but no child stands alone. A child stands with family members, community, and so they come from a subsystem. And so we work with that subsystem in order for us to be able to impact that child positively. And so we go on the premise or the method, the if and then method, which means if these positive or risky behaviors are addressed with their families and we have the buy-in of the family, then we are able to see those positive behaviors change. So most of the times we will work with our families and as well introduce to our parents parenting sessions that will help to strengthen their communication level in terms of how they see themselves in the family. So all of our cases are, or if not most of our cases are referred either through different agencies, including Child Care and Protection Agency, because sometimes that's our sister agency. So they will see they will come across cases with delinquency, and we are there to support each other and the communities as well. One of the components of our work lately, it has been the youth-friendly spaces that are created throughout we would like to have that throughout our country or region. We have started with Linden and Region 4 in Strathaven, where young people can go at a safe space and be able to have someone there who will actually sit with them, whether it's homework, whether it's something they want to talk about in terms of family. So that's where another safety net for FES comes in. So that would be for FES, the work for FES.
Thank you very much, Ms. Craig. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. Minister, there's a point you had made about the media taking the journey with the ministry, but there's one media house that joined the bus a little bit late. So I will ask for the final question coming from the floor. Trishelle?
My question is
Could
just
you
a
repeat that?
follow-up. Pardon me? Trishelle Silvers, Guyana Times. My question is just a follow-up to the Kitesur's News question about the cases. Is it possible for media to have a regional breakdown for the cases in 2024? And also, can you say how much of those cases were serious for 2025 and 2024, the reported cases?
Well, I would like to say all the cases are considered serious by the Child Care and Protection Agency, but there is a breakdown, and we can share that with you before we close up. No problem.
Yeah, the breakdown is quite lengthy. All right, so a breakdown of cases for 2024. Do you mean by abuse type? By region.
Just by region.
Okay, so by region, here we go. So for region 1, 51. Region 2, 181. Region 3, 145. Region 4, 466. Region 5, 83. Region 6, 147. Region 7, 10. Region 8, 21. Region 9, 50. Region 10, 48. And this is, the data I just provided would have been child sexual abuse for 2024, right? The total of all abuses for 2024 was 4,038. Right, so that was just the child sexual abuse cases. But we can make the information concerning all the different cases available for you.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And thank you to the members of the media, and thank you as well to the Honourable Minister, as well as the team from the Ministry, as well as the Child Care Protection Agency. As we finally close off, I hope that y'all are heading out to enjoy the Children's Mashimani competition. The Mash Parade, sorry. So do have a good rest of the day and be safe.
Thank you to you and to my team and to all of you for coming out here. And we'll continue to see each other this way and in other forms as we continue to share information and engage. Thank you, and to all the children out there, be safe, enjoy yourself, but be safe. Thank you.